How's it going, everybody? My name is Matt Holborn. I'm a jazz violinist. This is my little video showing 3 licks that teach you all about Stefan Grappelli's style. A violinist that everybody thinks of straight away when they think of jazz violin is Stefan Grappelli. Grappelli was one of the most prominent and most famous jazz violinists when he was around. He sort of paved the way for a lot of violinists to start playing jazz. I've heard people describe him as being a really good gateway drug into jazz for classical violinists because of his tone and his sort of sensibilities and his playing style. He does sort of have that classical edge to his tone, so he's quite a nice musician to listen to if that's what you're used to from a violin. What I'm thinking about mainly in this video is the way Grappelli plays notes rather than the notes themselves. We're not going to spend loads of time talking about theory and all that. How he plays different notes, why he does it like that, sort of where he might have got that from, and how you can play in that same way as well. Before I jump into this, please like, share and subscribe, and please, if you're enjoying these videos, you can get hold of transcriptions of everything I do, as well as access to my weekly guided practice sessions on Zoom if you go to my Patreon. So there'll be a link in the description of this. If you would like to learn more with me, if you would like to get more out of my teaching, then please get involved in my Patreon. There's loads of different ways that you can do it. There's loads of different tiers, things that suit every budget, so please get involved. Check it out in the link in the description. Also, if you would like a free copy of my Introduction to Enclosures for Jazz Violinists ebook, please check the link in the description below as well. So let's get straight into it. Lick number 1. This is from Danse Nuptiale, which is, you also find it called Mopping the Bride. It's the 1947 Paris version. 1, 2, 3, 4. This lick is played over a B-flat rhythm changes. It's mainly based on a B-flat major arpeggio. And then messes around with some of the notes around that. It finishes with this little flourish that you often hear Grappelli doing over major tonality tunes. So anything that's in a major key, you will hear Grappelli, especially if it's fast, you might hear Grappelli playing this. And it's this. So this line really is just Grappelli messing around with the feeling of the blues. So he sort of bounces around the flat 7, which is the A flat, bounces around the D flat, which is the flat 3, and then he sort of bounces around the root as well. And Grappelli isn't trying to be clever here, he's just trying to get a little bit of blues into his playing, and I think it works really nicely. It fits really nicely under the fingers, and it works in a load of different musical places. But yeah, mainly in sort of major key tunes. So what I would suggest you do with this is to just try and get it down in as many keys as you possibly can. Focus around the keys that you play in a lot. You can even maybe just do it as you go. So if you're working on a tune in G, just think, hey, okay, I'll try and make sure I can play that. And so on and so on. So it's a real simple line, it's worth getting down, and it's a real common Grappelliism. Line number 2 is over that classic minor swing recording of Grappelli and Django that we all know quite well, I imagine. So I'm looking at this line because it features Grappelli's wide vibrato and his slides as well. Grappelli was a massive Louis Armstrong fan, and if you listen to this line and you listen to that slide and that vibrato, you could really hear the trumpet in it, in my opinion. And I do think that at some point Grappelli really made a big effort to try and emulate the trumpet, because that was what he was hearing, and that's sort of what everybody's idea of jazz was at that time. It was the trumpet. So it's really just those 2 notes that we're looking at here. So the first one, he plays A, and he slides down like that. it sort of falls down rather than fully slides. It's not like, right? You want to make sure that that's what you do, because actually if you go too much, it sounds too much. It doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel like that sort of trumpet sound. You want to basically only really accentuate the A, that note, and then as soon as you've played that A, you sort of trail off. You sort of take away the pressure in your left hand. And that gives it that sort of feeling of like it's just sort of fallen off a little bit. And that's the sort of sound that you might hear from someone like Louis Armstrong. And then it's the vibrato. And the vibrato is so wide that it's sort of close to being a trill in a way. And it's hard to tell, but I think sometimes Grappelli did actually let the finger above touch the string. And it becomes this shake, and that is a real classic trumpet style shake. Wah! Nice trumpet impression, Matt. So it really does feel in this instance that the way that Grappelli is playing these notes is lifted straight out of a Louis Armstrong solo. And I do think it's probably quite important for us, if we're trying to study Grappelli's style, to also study Louis Armstrong's style a little bit. So if I were you, I would spend a little bit of time listening to Louis as well as listening to Grappelli. Make sense? Hopefully. And obviously a very simple way that you can start getting into trying to make this happen is when you're improvising, if you're going to repeat a note, why don't you try and, instead of repeating the note completely the same, play it slightly different, right? So that's what's happened here. Grappelli's played that A a load of different times. It's the root note of the tune. It's a simple note, but because he plays it differently every time, it sort of becomes a different note. We don't need to know loads of theory to be able to create something new. Improvising with these ornaments is improvising just as much as improvising with different notes is. So it's important to understand that. It's important to spend a bit of time trying to get that under your fingers. Okay, and lick number 3 is over the tune Nagasaki, which is a super fast C major tune. This line is made up of sort of 2 different lines that I don't think are the most melodic lines in the world, but Grappelli plays them all the time, and he plays them with such groove that they work really well. They also work really nicely under the fingers, so they're worth working on. That's the first one. It's sort of based on a C major arpeggio. It sort of encloses that G in a certain way. And then we got this one. Again, it's just a little flourish going down the C major scale. It sort of has a little bit of a bluesy moment where it goes between the flat 3 and the 3. It's super fun to play on the violin, so it makes sense as something that you would play over a fast tune. It feels really nice under the fingers. And yeah, Grappelli plays it with loads of groove. And this is the thing, Grappelli's bowing, sometimes he really didn't use much at all. And in this instance, you can really hear that. He's really not moving I don't think he's moving his bow very much at all. And that's how we get that little sense of groove. So it's important to be able to work on that, especially this last little bit. However you want to bow it, you want to sort of be slurring on offbeats a little bit, but the main thing you want to do is make sure that you're not bowing loads and you're bowing at the tip of the bow. It's how we can get that sense of groove that Grappelli does so well. If you're doing it here, it'd be harder. It's possible, but it's a lot harder. We want to try and keep things simple for ourselves when we're improvising, especially over fast tunes. Those are 3 lines that I think speak lots about Grappelli's style. We've got slides, we've got wide vibrato, we've got violinistic flourishes down the major scale, and we've got bluesy flat 3, flat 7 lines that sort of mess around with that blues sound. We've got a load of different things out of it, and I think those are some of the things that make up Grapelli's sound. If you've enjoyed this video, please sign up to my Patreon if you want transcriptions of things like this, my other videos, if you want to join my weekly guided practice sessions. And that's it. Goodbye!